Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Apart from education, health is another important area of concern in social development. Now, in this session, thus we will be discussing about health. Now, while discussing about health, we will also discuss briefly about population policy. The reason we will be discussing about population policy is that often in the public debate it is often observed that whatever social problems that we have has been resulted due to population pressure that we have in our country, or the population whatever problem that we have is has been resulted from population density. So, that is how it is often said that it is the population pressure which causes most of the social problem, or sometimes it is said whatever social problem we have, those problem has caused or resulted population pressure. Anyway, to clarify this, we would like to look at the issue of population pressure. Whether population is a cause or consequence of the social problems that we have, we will try to answer this question. Now, what we would do, we would scrutinize some of the concerns that is expressed in terms of population. Size of Indian population has been subject to much concern. Now, a critical scrutiny of this concern is needed. Now, we will do that with the help of three figures. Now, figure 1 which will show shortly, which shows that there is a firm upward trend in the total size of the population in our country. Then we have figure 2 which shows the total fertility rate shows a declining trend, and then we have a figure 3 which shows the fertility rates vary radically across the country. Now, let us look at the figure 1. What do we see here? This figure presents the India's population growth or Indian population during the last century, 1901 to 2001. During this period, what was the trend of population growth? Now, see, in 1901 we had a little more than 200 million population. Okay, that was in the beginning of the 1901. Now, then we have steady growth of this population, and by the end of that by 2001, actually we have around 1,000 million population. So, there is a steady growth of population that we have witnessed in the last century. Now, this is of course is a matter of concern. There is a steady growth of population in our country. Now, let us look at another figure now, which is total fertility rate, India's total fertility rate, that was during the period 1978 1971 to 1998. Now, this figure presents fertility rate during this period. Now, surprisingly, now what we see here, this is very contradictory to what we have seen in earlier figure. Now, what we see here, that in 1971, of course, before we go to that, I must briefly explain what is fertility rate. by fertility rate we refer to the number of children born to a couple. That is what by roughly by fertility rate we refers to that, the number of children born to a couple. Now in 1971 the fertility rate was more than 5. That means in 1971 have average fertility rate, or in average per couple more than 5 children were born in India. Okay. Now then you see there is a steady decline in the fertility rate, it is coming down, and when you come to 1998 this fertility rate is somewhere near, it has come down somewhere near 3. That means by the year 1998 per couple in average 3 children are born. So there is a steady trend, a steady declining trend in fertility rate. That is what we observed. Now so how do we explain these two contradictory figures? Like earlier we have seen that in India we witness a steady growth of population, okay, but there at the same time the figure 2 shows there is a steady decline in the fertility rate, and if there is a decline in the fertility rate then population should increase, is not it? Now what is the answer to this puzzle? Answer to this puzzle is like this, population growth depends on fertility rate as well as mortality rate. What happens, when fertility declines, along with that mortality rate also declines. As a result of that, if mortality rate declines higher than fertility rate, then still there will be a growth of population. In fact, that is what happens, when fertility rate starts declining, what happens, the mortality rate also declines, and there is something called demographic transition, where fertility rate, decline of fertility rate takes over mortality rate. That means decline of fertility rate will be higher than mortality rate. Only when that happens, then there will be a declining growth of population. So in India what has happened, though we have witnessed, we are witnessing a steady growth in the population, and in spite of decline in the fertility rate, this is happening due to mortality rate, and it has been predicted, but by the middle of this century what will happen, that decline in fertility rate will take over the mortality rate, and then we will reach to a steady population, or we will witness a decline in the population, growth in the population. So what it suggests that we need not concern that much about the population problem. Of course, population problem is a serious problem, no denying of the fact, but actually often it is said the population bomb is going to explode. That is not going to happen, because we are having a decline, we have a decline in the population, at least in the fertility rate of population. Okay, now there is another important figure, that in the figure 3, which shows that when we are talking about decline in the fertility rate, the decline in the fertility rate varies widely across regions. This is very interesting. Now if you look at this figure, like it shows, like in the state of Uttar Pradesh, fertility rate was quite high, more than 4.5, okay, whereas in state like Kerala fertility rate was quite low. Now let me explain what this line indicates. This line that has been drawn in this figure, this line shows the replacement level. That means when a couple is replaced by 2.2% or it is counted as 2.1%, that is the stable population growth rate. That means if a couple is replaced by 2%, that means we do not have a growth in the population. Okay. Now this line is drawn here. This line is drawn here. Now what you witness here, that state of Kerala and state of Tamil Nadu has already reached below replacement level of fertility rate. Okay. And some other states like Himachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, West Bengal, these states are likely to reach that stage. That means, stable population growth rate very shortly, or they may have already reached that stage. Okay. That is very important, that in some parts of our country or in some regions or some states, we already have reached a stable population rate or replacement rate of population growth. But problem is, in some other parts of our country, in some other states like UP or Bihar or Rajasthan or Madhya Pradesh or Haryana, in some of the states we have a fertility rate which is much higher than replacement rate, and as a result of that, what we see, the type of population growth that we see in the population in average, that happens because of this type of disparity in the fertility rate. So this point you should keep in mind when we discuss about population issue in our country. Okay. So from these three figures, what you can conclude, that there is no case of crude alarmism that often characterize public debate on population issue. We need not get alarmed that population bomb will explode. Now, but of course, given the density of population is always a problem in our country. It creates environmental problem. It has some implication for infrastructure, like whatever infrastructure we create, that may not be enough or that may not be sufficient, but that infrastructure get overcrowded because of that type of population density that we have in our country. That is why population problem is a important issue, and so the seriousness of population issue must not be dismissed. But of course, population growth in India is not outstripping the growth of food supply. According to Malthusian theory, it is said that at one stage, population growth will outstrip the growth of food supply, and there will be famine, etc., etc. But that is not going to happen in India, because we know that fertility rate in India is declining. Okay, but what is important as that, so food supply is not food supply for population is not an issue as such, but what is important is the nutrition level. Around 50% of the children in India suffer from malnutrition. So what is required is actually we need nutritious food for the children. That is what is most important. Food supply may not be concern for food supply is not that much important, but nutritious food is important. Consumption of nutritious food should go up in our country, and of course pressure on environmental resource is very strong, and pressure on infrastructure is also, there is an adverse impact on infrastructure, and so all this together create a problem. Population growth creates a problem. When we put all this together, population growth is really a problem. So we need to be concerned about that. Now the question is, what is the solution of this problem, or what type of social policy we should adopt to solve this type of problem of this type of problem of population pressure. Now, now what we argue here, that gender equality plays a very important role in here, to check the population. Why or how? What happens, we must understand that high fertility results into loss of freedom for women. If women very often get engaged in giving birth to child, or child she gets engaged in rearing child, that means that is a curtailment of her freedom. She cannot move around, etc., etc. So that is somehow a loss of freedom for women. Now, often women may not want to have that type of situation, very often to lose the freedom. Now, so that is why, if women is empowered, that if women is can assert their will or assert their wish, maybe fertility rate will come down. Now, what happens in some societies, women suffer from social and economic handicaps, like say we have female illiteracy, or lack of paid employment for the women, or women may be deprived of property rights, etc., etc. So women may not have economic rights. That means women are not empowered, and that results into higher, that influences higher fertility. Now, also what is important, lack of access to family planning facilities. Women may not be able to get access to family planning facilities. That also contributes to the growth of population. And apart from that, there are cultural and religious factors. What happens, women usually in some society may not enjoy a inferior position than men, and women may be less powerful, they may not be able to assert themselves. So what happens, sometime whatever their husbands or the parents-in-law say, that they may think that is very natural, that if their husband or their parents-in-law says that it is very natural, the women should give birth to more and more child, and that is good for the women. Sometime because of the religious beliefs and because of the cultural practices, women may start believing that is natural, but that happens usually because women are less powerful in some society. That is what happened. Now, what we are arguing, that women's empowerment will reduce fertility. How? Like say, for example, women, if female literacy is promoted, female promotion of female literacy is one type of empowerment of women. If female literacy is promoted, what happens? That will reduce child mortality, and when child mortality reduces, that will reduce fertility. Now, how child mortality will contribute in reducing fertility? What happens, when there are high mortality rate, then often the families are not sure that how many children will survive. So they may be inclined to have more children, and that is why fertility rate may go up. So if mortality rate reduces due to female literacy, that may contribute to reduce fertility rate. Another thing is, if women get employment opportunity, that also may contribute reduction of fertility rate. Like how that happens, firstly, women would like to have more children because they are they want security for the at the old age. They are worried that there someone should be there to look after them when they are old, and they think that their children, when they grow up, they will look after them in their old age. But when so having children give them security for the old age. Now, but when they have when women have employment opportunity, that gives them some security for the old age. When women are employed, they are economically secure. So that due to that type of security, which they get from the employment and earning, they may not feel that they must have some children to look after them, and in the old age that may not be that way important. So that may result into reduction in fertility rate. And other is also, female literacy also may result into women's employment. So female literacy and women employment together may contribute to the reduction of fertility rate among the women. And apart from that, family planning facilities should be made available. Okay, so so what is important for reduction of fertility rate? Women's empowerment is important for reduction of fertility rate. Now, this empowerment can happen in terms of promotion of women female literacy, or promotion of women's employment opportunity, or providing access to family planning facilities to women. If women are this way empowered, then women may feel more secure, and that may contribute to the reduction of fertility rate. It may it may appear a little funny, like if I see, when we look at, say, a crowded infrastructure, say when we look at, say, crowded cities, crowded transportation system, all crowded infrastructure, one can say, now one may ask, what is the solution of this problem? What is the solution of this overcrowding of infrastructure, social infrastructure that we have? How can we solve this problem of overcrowding? Or when you find that cities are expanding and more construction is coming up, and roads are getting overcrowded with transport, and as a result of that, there is environment problem, environmental issue, environment is getting polluted. Now, one may ask, what is the solution of this? Now, one may suggest that one solution of this problem may be empowerment of women. How? Indirectly, the empowerment of women. Now, if we empower women, that would result into reduction of fertility, and that may solve some of the problems that we face due to overcrowding. So this shows how social development is important, plays very important role in solving some of the developmental problem. Now, what are the factors that influence fertility rate? So, educational development, schooling of girls. If girls are enrolled in the school, that would result into educational development, and that may influence fertility rate. That may reduce fertility rate. Economic arrangement. Like as we have mentioned just now, that economic arrangement, that female job opportunity. Like if we create more job opportunity for women, that may reduce fertility rate, because when women are employed, they may not, firstly they get slightly empowered, and secondly, when they are employed, they may not want to the confinement due to often confinement due to pregnancy and rearing of child. So that will work, that may reduce fertility rate. social concern and cultural factors. These are all linked. If women enjoy better status in a society, that then women can assert themselves, and then that may reduce result into reduction of fertility rate. And there are cultural factors. If family decisions are taken based on equality, then if there is a tradition of that women also will have their say in family decision, then in that type of tradition women can easily assert themselves, and that may reduce fertility rate. And health care, particularly reproductive health care, if proper health care is available, that would reduce mortality rate, and that also will contribute to reduction of fertility rate. And obviously family planning, availability of contraceptive facilities is important to reduce fertility rate. Now, to put all these factors together in one word, what you can say that if women are empowered or women are given more freedom, that would ultimately result into the reduction of fertility rate, and that would contribute to the problem of population density or population problem that we have in our country or in many countries. That so women empowerment is a way of reducing fertility or solving the problem of population. Okay. Now let us go to the so far we have we are trying to show how population problem can be solved through empowerment of women. Okay. Now we are moving to a next section where we will discuss about that healthcare as a social responsibility. Healthcare is something which is very much neglected in our country, and that creates lot of problem. Healthcare has been one of the neglected aspect of development in India. India is known for neglect of healthcare, and that is one of the major problem in India. Now, what are the consequences of this? What are the consequences of this negligence of healthcare? One is communicable diseases. We have in our country people suffer from lot of diseases, lot of illness which are communicable diseases. More than 50% burden of diseases, whatever suffering people go through for illness, 50% of that is due to communicable diseases. And these communicable diseases, it is possible to avoid this type of thing with if we had better sanitation, it's a better health facility. Secondly, another consequence of that, some of the illnesses which are readily preventable. In our country, people suffer from those type of illnesses, like for example, measles, leprosy, malaria, etc. These type of diseases, these type of illnesses can be easily preventable through, say, vaccination or type of thing, or proper sanitation, etc. But in our country, people suffer from this type of illnesses, like say leprosy cases. 68% of the worldwide leprosy cases belongs to shared by India. So these are the diseases which could have been avoided easily if we had better health facilities, better health care. And another area of concern is nutrition related ailments. As I mentioned that suffering from malnutrition is very widespread in India, and actually many of the illness from which people suffer in our country is resulted due to nutritional deficiency. So these three things, communicable diseases, preventable illness and nutrition related ailments, all these has been resulted due to neglect of healthcare in our country. Now now how healthcare has been why and how healthcare has been neglected in our country. First of all, we very low level of public expenditure on health. We spend very little amount we invest on health. It is 0.8% of the GDP. That is one thing. Firstly, we allot very little fund for healthcare, which is only 0.8% of our GDP. Now, secondly, whatever little fund that we allot for healthcare, this is used very inefficiently, very highly inefficient use of available resources. Whatever resources we have, whatever fund that we allocate, this fund is used or utilized very inefficiently. That is second problem. And third problem is inequality in access. Now, out of this little fund which is very inefficiently utilized or inefficiently used, and again after that, there is inequality in access to these facilities. Like for example, backward regions may not there may not be any proper health facility, or poorer section or backward caste or gender, like women may not be able to use health facilities. They may not visit health centers. Because there is many there is a parda system, or there is maybe some restriction in some parts of our country in the movement of the women. So women may feel hesitate to go to the health center, or sometime people belonging to the tribal population or people belonging to backward caste, they may be little scared to go to the health center, etc., etc. So because of these factors, firstly, low level of public expenditure, and then inefficient use of resources and inequality of access, actually we have a massive problem in health. Now actually, interestingly, it is said that why you have this type of problem, in healthcare. It is often point out that what we follow is something called Western model of healthcare. That is what is the problem. In the literature on policy, often it is suggested that the type of problem that we face in India in terms of healthcare, because we follow a wrong type of model, we follow an Western model. That is one accusation. Second accusation is that inefficiencies of public services. It says that healthcare, when it is provided by government, it is very inefficient. It is said that in healthcare is provided by the government, and it is very inefficient. Inefficiency in public, because of this inefficiencies is a problem of problem. That is why we have this type of problem in health sector. Now let us see how far these two types of accusation are correct. Now, Western model. Now, what is Western model, or what are some of the characteristics of Western model? Western model is characterized by long-term relation between doctors and patients. In most of the Western countries, most of the families will have a family doctor. So whenever they have some health issues, they'll go to the family doctor, and they have a long term relation with doctors and patients. They have a long term relation. That is one of the characteristics of Western model. And another important aspect of Western model is widespread health education. Government takes lot of effort to spread education about health. The awareness of the people regarding health is very high. And what is most important part of the Western model is that Western model gives lot of emphasis on preventive medicine and health care. Preventive medicine is given lot of preventive health care. That government has a lot of program for preventive medicine, or like vaccination, sanitation, etc., or preventive health care. These are very regular checkup of health, so preventive health care. These are very important part of Western model. And close supervision of medical profession. Medical profession is under close supervision. Like some of the Western countries, every 5 years doctors will have to renew their registration. Because now for renewing the registration, doctors must give some exam or must prove that they have updated knowledge about various types of in medical practices. Okay, so medical profession is under very close supervision, so that keeps the doctor more efficient. And what is most important, large degree of socialization of health services. Like health services is free and provided by government, and it is meant for everybody. That most of the Western countries under Western model, everybody gets, particularly in the Europe, most of the European countries, everybody gets free medical treatment which is provided by government. These are some of the characteristics of Western model. Now actually, if we analyze healthcare system in India, actually our system doesn't fit. We do not follow Western model. We don't do any such thing. So to say that we face health, we face problem in healthcare because we follow a Western model, it is totally wrong, because we do not qualify, or we do not follow Western model. Okay. The second accusation is inefficient public services. Why people suffer? Because government provided health care is very inefficient. Now reality is, in India, healthcare system is essentially a market based system. What has happened, government has very little presence in healthcare. It is a market based system. It has emerged as a market based system. Many patients buy powerful drugs over the counter from chemist shop. If one goes to any small town or any other cities, you will find that chemist shops are overcrowded all the time, and patients are buying medicines over the counter, even sometimes without any prescription, and they will just tell the name of the medicine and they will buy those medicines. Okay, or sometimes they will tell the chemist in the shop that this is the type of problem he or she is having, what type of medicine she or he should take. So the chemist will give some medicine to him or her, to the patient. So and this is a very predominant practice. So it is actually, it is not that government is providing health facilities. Most of the time, people buy medicines from the market and through this type of system, which is very inefficient. And whatever public health services that we have, like say health center or other type of government and public system that we have, actually they are not free of cost. Often people have to spend some money. Like supposing even if there is a health center which is in a very bad condition, supposing there is a health center, now if one when a patient visits the health center, the doctor may obviously often prescribe some test or something, some has to be performed. Now those test facility for having those tests may not be available in that center. Now the patients may have to go to a private private medical establishment to get those tests done, where he or she has to pay. And even some of the services which are supposed to be free in government hospital, often they charge some fee for those. So actually in our country medical facility is not free, that is. So it is most of the time people buy medicine from the market, paying for it. Most of the time when people avail even the government health services, where they have to pay, and so that is how actually so we cannot say that inefficiency of public services. Actually we do not have public services at all, so we cannot talk about inefficiency of so it is wrong to say that inefficiency of public services is the cause of having inefficient healthcare system in our country. Now actually the need of the state involvement has been brought out very forcefully from the experience of Europe, America and Asia and Africa. If we look around, most of the country, like whether developed countries or not so developed country, like it has been found that healthcare has to be provided by the government. Okay, but in India public expenditure in health is only around 15%, which is one of the lowest in the world. Public involvement in health matter is particularly relevant for preventive medicine and public health, and more so in India, where incidence of communicable disease is extremely high. Now and actually see first what we have said, that in our country public service is absent in healthcare. This is because we allot very little amount, only 15% of the share of public expenditure is allotted in healthcare. But in India it is more important that government should own the health services, because preventive medicine is very important in our country. Preventive medicine, preventive care, like immunization services, sanitation services, these are very important in India. Now this can be one can have these things only through the involvement of government. Now let us see the amount we spend in public expenditure. This figure shows the public expenditure in health. Like see, for example, if you look at this figure, this is in India. Share public expenditure on health. This share is health expenditure is only 15% of the total public expenditure. It is only 15%. Now you see in all other countries, whether it is South Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa or Middle East, everywhere share of health expenditure on in public expenditure is much higher. India is one of the lowest. Similarly, percentage of GDP that we allot on health is only 0.8%, and which is higher in any other country. So all over, like if you go to the European country, high income country, it is 6%, here it is 75%, anyway. So you see, it is very clear that how little we allot for healthcare. So one can say that so if we say the inefficiency of public services is causing health problem or health related problem, in fact we hardly spend any money, government spend, and hardly public services in health is present. Now actually doctors, not many doctors found the time and commitment to lead public health initiative. These doctors cannot do that. Okay. While the overall record of public health initiatives in India is quite dismal, there is, of course, that doesn't mean that we are doing badly in everywhere. There are some instances where government, there are some success stories. Like for example, the polio immunization program. We are very successful in polio immunization program. A country so vast as India, to immunize thousands of children, giving a polio vaccine is something is very remarkable, and as a result of that we are almost emerging as a polio free country, which other countries have already done, but India is now emerging at it. It was a tremendous task. So what we can say, that public health initiative in India is quite dismal. We nothing to very but that doesn't mean that we are not capable of doing this, because we have some success stories, particularly the polio immunization shows that it is possible for the government to provide to achieve success if government is willing to do that. However, the overall picture is far from encouraging. In most states, the health centers are in a very bad condition. Medicines are not available, doctors are absent, patients are charged for services, etc., etc. Like in general, overall picture is very bad. Like if you go to any health centers, you will not find doctor may not be present. Medicines are not available, doctors are absent, and often patients are charged, etc., etc. This type of thing is very common, very common. So this is also true. That means we have very inefficient or very badly run health services in our country. Okay. Now we will discuss another point, that government effort is absent. Okay, government first of all, we have said that Western model, we do not follow the Western model, so we cannot say that a healthcare system in our country suffers because we follow Western model. Secondly, we cannot say that healthcare system suffers in our country because of the inefficiency of public services. Now here what we have seen, that public services or government provide government sponsored health care is rather absent. Very little presence is there in our country, and whatever presence is there, this is very efficient. Now the third point which we want to about which we want to mention, that problem of private provision of health. Now one can say that, is it possible to provide to provide healthcare privately? Okay, and what is the issue? What is the problem in providing if we privatize health services? If we, now can is it possible to provide healthcare in the private sector? Now what are the problem here? Now if we now private practice, now think of a private practitioner, a doctor who is practicing privately. Now can he get involved in preventive medicine? What is the motivation you will have for providing preventive medicine? Now but in our country, what is required is that we should have more preventive medicine, because we have a presence of various types of communicable diseases. So what is required is preventive medicine, and that private doctors cannot provide. Only government will have to do that. So because private doctors will not be at all motivated, because you know private doctors, firstly they may not have time to do that, and secondly what will be his gain? Rather, if he gets more patients, that will be monetarily benefiting for him. So why a private practitioner will be interested or get involved in preventive medicine? Even for curative services, the private provision of healthcare poses well-known difficulties. Even for curative, okay, then okay, one may say, okay, maybe private doctors may not be able to provide preventive care, you know, but what about curative services? Curative services they could provide. Now there are some problems here. When patients are unable to assess the quality of services being provided to them, competition by itself is a poor efficiency enhancing drive. You know what we often say, that you know competition brings efficiency. Okay, now supposing if we have private provision of health care, then what will happen, that you know better doctor and who provides cheaper services, or a doctor who provides better services with less price, you know, they will become more popular. Okay, because through competition, the private sector, private profession means there is a competition among the doctors, and a doctor who is more efficient, he will be more popular, and doctor who provides better treatment with less cost will be more popular. But problem is, when you buy some goods or services from somewhere, we are able to judge, okay, this is good, this is of superior quality, this is of inferior quality, and accordingly you know we will buy those items which we get in lesser price and better quality of goods. But for treatment, often it is not possible to assess that. As a patient, it is not possible to judge often who is a good doctor, who is not, who is providing better type of treatment. It is because, you know, what may happen, that maybe medical ethics suggests that, you know, this is the way a patient should be treated, you know. Now when the doctor follows that medical ethics, you know, which may take a longer time to become cured, you know, for the treatment to give result, and that may be good in the long run. But often what happens, you know, some doctor may prescribe from some strong medicine, some etc., and a patient may get cured very fast, and then the patient may have formed the opinion that this doctor who cured me very fast, maybe he is a better doctor. But maybe the reality is not so, you know. The doctors who cured the patient very fast, maybe the line of treatment he or she has followed, that may not be the quite efficient or right type of you know treatment that he has provided. But it is not possible for a patient to judge which doctor is better or which doctor is not so good, you know. Now if only treatment is provided by government doctor, or if someone provides free treatment, then that doctor will not bother or will not care for, you know, how many patients I get. Then he will more likely to follow the established you know or ethical medical practices, you know. That may take longer time to get cured, but that may be better in the long term, in the long run. So that is why, you know, there is a problem in private provision of health, because you know, it is not possible to judge in the market who is good doctor, who is not so good doctor. And another thing is a regulatory mechanism in medical profession in India is not very effective. This is for various reasons. One is that a regulatory mechanism often works in the interest, in the monetary interest of the doctors. Often, the regulatory mechanism that we have, IMF and all this type of associations that we have, they sometimes work in such a way so that promotes monetary interest of the doctors. And what is most important, that most of the patients in our country, they do not go to a qualified registered doctors, because what happened, majority of the patients in our country in the rural area or in a small town, they go to quack doctors. These doctors are not at all qualified, but what happens, because the patients are they are illiterate, so now even if they go to a qualified doctor, firstly those doctors will charge, and secondly the doctors will give some prescription, they will write something which the patients will not be able to read, So that is one problem. So they may not know what medicine the doctor has suggested, what medicine they should take, and how they should, how often they should take this medicine, etc., etc. So they feel much convenient to go to a quack doctor. The quack doctor, they may not even give a prescription. They will just give some medicine, and they will say that this medicine you take twice a day or thrice a day, etc., etc. And most of the illiterate patients, they find that is much more convenient. So actually because of this type of thing, actually so most of the doctors are not under regulatory mechanism, because they are not registered doctors, they are quack doctors, So that is how the problem of private provision of health will not work in our country. Okay. So what we have discussed, that Western model is not applicable in our country, that is not correct. The inefficiency of public services, that is also not correct. And if we think of private provision health, there are several problems here. Okay. Now we'll go to the next topic, where we will discuss achievement in Tamil Nadu. In our country, though we have said that this type of dismal picture we have in our country in medical care, but there are some success stories, and particularly here we can mention about the case of Tamil Nadu. Now, like if you in Tamil Nadu, what has happened, there is Tamil Nadu, among the states of India, Tamil Nadu has the third lowest child mortality rate, is relatively low in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has second lowest maternal mortality rate, okay, and largest largest proportionate reduction in total fertility rate. So Tamil Nadu, if we look at some of the health indicators, Tamil Nadu has got lower mortality rate, okay, child mortality rate, lower maternal mortality rate, and Tamil Nadu has achieved reduction in total fertility rate. And Tamil Nadu has achieved that in spite of being a relatively poorer state. So that is also very important. Tamil Nadu is relatively a poorer state, but in spite of that, Tamil Nadu has achieved these things. Now, what is the explanation how this has happened? First of all, in Tamil Nadu there is a good infrastructure. Tamil Nadu has a good road network. They have a rich history of social movements and high literacy rate in the younger age groups, and wide popular exposure to mass media. Tamil Nadu has good infrastructure and rich history of social movement and high literacy of the younger age groups, and wide and popular exposure to mass media and strong political will. And what is not that widely discussed, that in Tamil Nadu women enjoy, you know, much liberated status. Now, if you compare the status of women in India, like if you compare status of women of Tamil women with say women of North India, studies have suggested shown that women in Tamil Nadu, they enjoy much better status, you know. So, that is also another reason why actually, you know, Tamil Nadu could Tamil Nadu could achieve better health status. Extensive state initiative in the fields of child nutrition, healthcare and social security also contributed. Now, this is one important thing about Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, what has happened, you know, child nutrition and healthcare and social security, somehow the government in Tamil Nadu has taken initiative in this area. Like for instance, you know, like a program like midday meal program. You know, midday meal program was initiated by M.G. Ramchandran many years ago, okay? And it was a very successful program, and later on other state followed Tamil Nadu in introducing midday meal program. So, Tamil Nadu that way, you know, in the area of health, nutrition, child nutrition, Tamil Nadu has done very good work. Another important thing is there, the social distance between medical officers and the patients is small in Tamil Nadu due to affirmative action. Like for instance, what happens, you know, if you go to any states or most of the states of the country, when you go to a hospital, what you will find, the doctors who is treating the patients, doctors usually come from relatively, you know, well off section of the society, or doctor may come from elite section of the society, whereas most of the patients, those who visit hospitals, they are from poorer, relatively poorer section, or they come from a different class background than the doctors. That is a common picture in most of the hospitals in our country, most of the health centers in our country. But you know, Tamil Nadu, the picture is slightly different. Some study has pointed out that when you go to a hospital in Tamil Nadu or in health center in Tamil Nadu, you will find that doctor and the patients, they come from quite similar background in terms of mannerism, in type of behavior, in terms of socio-economic background. The doctors are also from rural background or poorer background, and this has happened due to you know, one reason is the affirmative action that is practiced in Tamil Nadu, and many students from you know, relatively disadvantaged background, you know, join medical profession, and that is how what happened. There is less the distance between the you know, social distance between doctor and the patient is rather small, and that helps in providing better treatment to the patients. Then another thing, actually, in Tamil Nadu, politicians often use populism. Populism means, you know, often they will provide many free services to the patients or to the citizens in general, like providing free meals, etc., etc. Various types of popular populist step they take, and like say a lot of things may be provided free of cost to those who belongs to marginalized section of the society, etc., etc., or disadvantaged section, disadvantaged groups, or to women voters, etc. Now that type of populism also helped people to get better treatment. Now another important thing in Tamil Nadu politics, social programs get important position in public debates. When election happens in Tamil Nadu, because in Tamil Nadu women are relatively more assertive, they enjoy better status, they assert themselves, and they have, some women may have concern about child malnutrition, etc., etc., child education, etc., etc. Now what happened in the election campaign or in the public debates, Tamil Nadu politics will be often dominated by social programs, like say program like midday meal or some other type of programs where people some program for social development, whether a particular government has adopted program of social development, those things become they take a very prominent position in public debates, and that happens to some extent due to the empowerment of the women in Tamil Nadu. And what happens in other states of India, in most of the other states in India, or in North Indian states, usually women will vote according whatever their husband will advise. According to that, they will vote in the election. They'll cast their vote following their husband's advice or the family's advice. So the politicians know that they will have to influence, or they will have to cater only the male members of the community. So whatever campaign they have, those campaigns will be catering mainly towards the male members of the community. But whereas in Tamil Nadu, women are independent and they decide independently when they cast their vote. So this is what is known to the politicians. So politicians will try to implement or try to promise, they will promise those type of program which benefits the women, which benefits the children, which benefits the family, and that is how social health gets an important place in that debate, and ultimately those type of programs gets implemented. So health matters have been focus of the political competition. So health issue gets very important place in political discourse in Tamil Nadu. So, so ultimately what is required, the democratic practice and political empowerment hold the key to the transformation of the lives of the people, and ultimately to the much needed broadening of the social progress in India as elsewhere. So ultimately what is needed is political empowerment, democratic practices and political empowerment for the entire population, men and women, which is the key for social progress in India as well as in other countries, and that is what has happened in Tamil Nadu. So the key to success in social sector is to promote democratic practices and political empowerment. With this we conclude this session. Thank you.